An Alaska cruise is a once-in-a-lifetime event. So I'm going to really focus on things that are going to make that once-in-a-lifetime really, really special. So let's first of all start by talking about Juneau. Juneau is actually the capital of Alaska. It's been the capital since 1906, and it was originally founded by two prospectors, Richard Harris and Joseph Juneau, when they discovered that there was gold in the area with the help of a local chief, Cowie. It started a major gold rush, and many people flooded into what first was called Harrisburg and eventually became known as Juneau. About 30,000 people lived there. The gold mines closed in 1940. Juneau, however, what I recommend is you go dog sledding. This is a helicopter trip where you board helicopters and you fly off over Juneau, you go over the Juneau ice field, you see magnificent glaciers, and eventually you land at the Norris Glacier. Here there's around about 150 dogs which spend the whole season up there, and you get the chance to then go dog sledding. It's absolutely magical up there. It's so quiet, it's so peaceful, it's an incredible experience. Once you finish the event, you get a chance to interact with the dogs before the helicopters bring more people, and you board the helicopters and fly back to Juneau. This is probably, for me, one of the most magical travel experiences I've ever had. It is, though, rather costly. So if you go to the Norris Glacier dog sledding, it's going to cost you at least around about $630 per person. The other great thing to do in Juneau is to head up the Mount Roberts tramway. Now this tramway heads up to one of the two mountains that are in Juneau. So you've got the Mount Roberts and you've got the Mount Juneau. Mount Roberts tramway opened in 1996. It's one of the steepest cable car rides in the world, and it's a great way to get incredible views, even in wet and ready weather, which is what you're normally going to find in Alaska. The third thing to do in Juneau, which is very popular, which is to visit the Red Dog Saloon. Now the Red Dog Saloon dates right back to the ancient mining days. You often have to queue to get in, it's so popular, is Skagway. Skagway is right in the northern part of the Inside Passage, the most northern town, as the gateway to the Klondike. So when gold was discovered up in the Klondike, in the Yukon, in Canada, this became an incredibly important place. It was one of the easiest ways of reaching the gold, even though it was many, many hundreds of miles away. 30,000 prospectors headed to Skagway. Now, the most important thing to do in Skagway is to go on the White Pass and Yukon Railway. This was built to not only help prospectors find an easier way to get to the gold, but also became really important for carrying all the ore and the cargo back. The railway ran right up from the turn of the century, the 1900s, right up until 1982. It was then resurrected in the late 1990s as a tourist attraction. It travels from Skagway, the town, up many thousands of feet, right up to the White Pass, where it turns around and comes back down again. It's about a 40-mile return trip up to the top of White Pass and back down. There's two ways of going on the train. The first is, which is the bulk of the train, is the standard class. There is also, though, if you really want to make it very special, the premium carriage. There's only 14 people in this carriage. You have big, comfy seats. You have a guide just for the carriage who serves drinks, who serves food, and gives you commentary all the way. Now, all of the carriages do have viewing platforms. The great thing they do is there's normally a train allocated for each of the ships that are in port that day, and they come right to the ship and they pick up passengers from the ship. Now, the second thing I would do if you're in Skagway is actually spend time exploring the town. It's the most authentic and the most old world looking of all of the places that you're going to visit in the Inside Passage. So many of the buildings are either recreations or restored buildings. There's some great tours and history about the gold rush, and there's lots of great things to do just strolling around the town. So the next spot I want to talk about is Ketchikan. Ketchikan emerged and grew out of a native fishing camp, and it really became important and developed in the late 1800s. The second thing, which is another institution in Ketchikan, is called Creek Street. Creek Street is the old red light district. There's a very beautiful buildings, lots of stories behind them, including places like Dolly's house, which is one of the most famous. The third thing, which is slightly more cultural, is Totem Bite. So the park was originally created right back in the 1930s, when it was realized that as many of the indigenous native people were starting to move to the centers to look for work, there was a real concern that some of the heritage and the culture would be lost, particularly the beautiful totems that were created, these sort of storytelling totems. And many of them were just abandoned as people started to Now, the fourth destination that I want to talk about, you're not actually going to get off the ship when you get there. Take a look and see whether you're going to be going to Glacier Bay. It's only 2 cruise ships a day are allowed in there, so there's very limited amount of ships that go in there. So I, for example, cruised with Holland America. Now, Holland America have been operating in Alaska for over 70 years, and they are one of the cruise lines that will go into Glacier Bay just because they've been doing it for so long. If you don't go to Glacier Bay, you may be going to some other places like Tracy Arm. But Glacier Bay is the most magical and important place of all to see glaciers. Well, its official name is the Glacier Bay National Park and Preserve. It's 3.2 million acres. There's a number of really beautiful, massive tidewater glaciers. The main ones you'll see are the Reed Glacier, the Johns Hopkins Glacier, and the most impressive of all, which is the Marjorie Glacier. Wrap up warm, make sure you brought a great camera, ideally with a zoom lens on, or you can just go out there and enjoy it. Make sure that you spend most of the day out on deck. So you normally spend the whole morning cruising between these different glaciers. Representatives from the national parks will be on the ship, and they will be giving commentary during the day, and you are going to be shortchanged if you are on a cruise that goes into one or the other. There are 4 things that you are definitely going to be doing. You're going to be going to Juneau, Skagway, Ketchikan, and you're going to be cruising through one of the inlets like Glacier Bay. To make your cruise, which is probably a once-in-a-lifetime cruise, I've suggested 9 things that you absolutely should do. I really believe these made my Alaska Inside Passage cruise magical, and I would definitely do them again if I was going again.